Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and today we're driving the 2011 Honda CRZ. It's the strangest hybrid I think I've ever seen brought to market since the original Insight. And in the spirit of the new Prelude, that doesn't seem to tick all the boxes everybody wants out of a performance car, a performance hybrid at that. This CRZ seems like the perfect car to revisit, to understand Honda's legacy and bringing oddball cars that don't fit any buckets that the typical consumer is looking for. This is a hybrid four-cylinder that makes 122 horsepower, powering the front wheels. It's a hatchback two-seater. In the US, only 2 seats. International markets got a 2+2, but boy, they'd have to have some small children to fit in the little space back there. They may have been odd and they may not have ticked all the boxes. They were relatively affordable because it was cheaper than the Prius, but it didn't quite get the fuel economy. This was rated up to about 38 miles per gallon, which the Prius could absolutely supersede, but this could be had for about $20,000, about $5,000 less than the Prius. Hondas often lack superlatives. They're never the fastest, they're never the most powerful, but this is a 6-speed manual hybrid that ticks a lot of boxes for an enthusiast commuter that needs something a little different. But unfortunately, because we always segment everything, if it doesn't beat the others in the segment in certain categories, well, it's a failure. So let's take a look around and take a drive. First of all, the styling of this CRZ looks nothing like any Hondas that we ever got stateside. In fact, it reminds me a lot of the bulbous Type R that I used to see in Germany when I was working there, but never got here. And that's a good thing. It's got big doors with these bizarro handles. And you definitely don't want to pull on that because the owner needs to replace this. And thankfully, the owner is with me today because I know very little about this car and he's been living with it. He spent under $3,000 on this to replace his, wait for it, Volvo C30, because of course this is what would replace a Volvo C30, and I'm very curious to see how happy he is with that decision. The shape of the door is even bizarre. It's filthy because there's lots of miles on this car. Actually, how many miles are on this car?
This is a 155,000 mile CRZ, and I'm the 9th owner.
The 9th owner. That is a vile, and yeah. I would
use a detail.
Yeah, I think we should be sanitizing all the things. So, like I said, it's a 2-seater. You've got these great supportive seats. We're going to find out if we need them when we actually put it into a corner. But check this out. No rear seats, but you get these buckets, and it kind of reminds me like Porsche does stuff like this when they do a delete on rear seats, or if you get it a GT3 with no rear seats. So maybe we give it some extra style points for that. Then let's take a look in the hatch, because this has glass right here. It's even defrosted, so you get heaters in that glass. And then, boom, there you go. Reasonable space, but I don't think this is enough space for a bicycle to fit through. This rolls down.
Yeah, that folds down and covers the buckets, and then the storage cover comes out, and there's actually spots for it to clip into the trunk floor on the sides there.
Very cool. Now, I feel like anyone who sees this car is automatically intrigued, and I'm intrigued to see how it drives, but its stance on the road is utterly unique. I've never seen anything quite like it. And every time I see one, I'm excited because it's like you almost can't believe someone bought one. Because for the most part, if you were looking for a hybridized Honda in this time period, you'd simply go for an 8th gen or 7th gen Civic because those were fantastic. And actually, that's what Chris Brower, Topher Drives, owns. And if I can find it, there we go. There she is, the LEA. That is, oh boy.
Yeah, undercoated.
A little soupy in there, making sure she's rust protected, but there it is. That is the IMA, Integrated Motor Assist. So essentially what this does is you've got your engine that's attached to a flywheel. That flywheel has a motor on it, so that's what's assisting. But 111 horsepower of the 122 this thing carries is provided by its internal combustion engine. The rest is just a little assist to push it along and get it down the road a little more efficiently. And while we're looking here, let's take a look at what it's riding on. You've got a 16-inch wheel with a 195 section tire all around on these gorgeous Honda wheels. They remind me a lot of a Civic Si wheel from the 8th generation, but a little bit smaller. Tire choice is definitely going to be a choice in a car like this because that's going to have a big impact on your rolling resistance. So you're not going to want to put a real sticky boy on here unless you want to just get 30 miles per gallon, at which point, what's the point of having a 122 horsepower hybrid? So I think that's really the question is, a lot about this car is what's the point? Let's jump in and see if we can find out. All right, let's get it started up. We've got our Honda key here. And I think you can just give it a tick, right? And then,
Yeah.
All right.
You just flick the key.
Because there's no traditional starter.
There is, but it's only for if the battery's like completely dead, then it'll kick on.
Interesting. Lightning fast startup. Very unique display. I've never seen anything like this. This is based off of a Honda Fit chassis, I believe. And that looks a little bit Honda Fit, but everything else is more space age. TPMS sensors are busted, so we're gonna get through that. But the weirdest thing about this is this speedometer. It's magnified as if I'm Mr. Magoo and can't really see, and I need like giant thick boy Coke bottle glasses. So down here, obviously, traditional 6-speed manual shifter, and it feels, like epically tight. That's a really nice shifter. They also came in CVT, in which case they had an S Plus button, which would be here? Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that. I thought S Plus was introduced on the new Prelude, but lo and behold, it was introduced on the CRZ. No wonder nobody knows about it. Over here, you've got different modes. You've got your econ, your economy, your normal, your sport mode, all very hazy and disgusting because this has been used and abused.
I've cleaned those buttons like multiple times. No luck with the
No, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Under here, you've got room for some sunnies and then a CD player. We love that. Mm-hmm. Hopefully nothing gross comes out here. Great. All right. Did not check. We've got an aux, like a really cool location for the aux, actually. I like that. And then, yeah, everything else is like relatively standard Honda fare, but this is a unique feeling interior. And I think that's really important because even in the Prelude, which everyone is bemoaning its purpose and reason to be and price, a lot of the Prelude still feels very civic. And this doesn't. This actually has a really unique vibe to it. And you've even got this really cool HVAC control right here, which reminds me a lot of the first generation Honda Prelude that I drove from 1979. This is kind of like the radio controls in that car. So you can tell that there was some heritage brought into play. I also love how enormous the kilometers per hour to miles per hour button is for your speed, which so ridiculously large. This needs to be practically a paperclip pinhole button because of the frequency in which you would ever use it. So I guess it's designed for somebody who's traveling between Detroit and Canada all the time. Anyway, let's get out and drive it. Make sure this fella doesn't hit us with a Tundra. Already pretty juicy in the torque, and I'm seeing the colors change. It must be trying to tell me that I'm being eco-friendly, so I would imagine it's green when I'm good, blue when I'm moderate, and I assume red when I'm bad.
Red only comes on if you throw sport mode on, and then it stays that way. It stops telling you about your eco-friendliness, and it also stops telling you when to shift.
Gotcha. All right, well, let's do a little loop around here.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, pretty good overhang. That's wide open. But I gotta tell you, it's not as slow as I thought it was gonna be. So this must not weigh that much.
I think it's around like 2,700 pounds if I'm not mistaken. And this is a base model, so it has quite literally nothing, especially not sound deadening. You get more engine noise from the front than from the exhaust for sure.
All right, you gotta get the rims up a little bit to get her off the line. I could feel it like fighting for traction there, partially because these are probably very old tires, partially because it's only like 30 something degrees. But this actually is delivering more performance than I anticipated, and the LEA sounds good.
Throw into sport mode if you it makes the electric assist come on earlier and it changes the throttle.
Oh, for real? All right,
yeah,
we'll do that once we
touch
get out there. But this is just, dude, like this is the thing about Hondas, man. They never ever tell the story with numbers. They're so lackluster in the marketing department with some of their stuff that they just like, they bury the lead, you know? They're like a great YouTube video with a terrible title. They're a great YouTube video with a bad thumbnail, which is probably what this video is. I hope. I don't pay people to do my thumbnails, so I just do what I do. But suspension is just kind of soaking everything up nicely. And I don't feel like I'm in a tin can. I actually feel like I'm in a reasonably substantial car. That's the problem with the first gen Insight. While that car got 70 miles per gallon, insane and fantastic, it's like a sardine can. There's nothing to it, and I think that gets a little sketchy.
It's part of the fun, but yeah, you feel like you're gonna meet God every time you drive one of those.
I don't know why she's letting me do this, but sometimes we just take the right of way we're given despite our lack of entitlement to it. But around town, this is just the easiest thing to drive. And you would have essentially no idea that this has some wild integrated hybrid system in it.
Yeah, the only time it catches me off guard is the auto start stop and the lack of torque when you're first getting going in first, because it won't turn that electric assist on until the clutch is all the way out.
Oh, I see. All right. That's probably a clutch saver, because I bet they were like, oh, if we start doing this, it's probably going to spool up that clutch. People are going to slip it too long, and then they're just going to roast it. Well, I always want to be nice in this neighborhood because there's Garage 42. Granted, I don't think, no offense to this car, I don't think they would think we were a patron. Now, I read in an in-period article that this had like bad visibility, but by what standards? Maybe by early 2000s standards, but like this is fine today.
The biggest issue I found is that the mirrors don't quite cover enough area, so someone can be in your like hind rear kind of corner and completely disappear. There is someone or some company.
I thought you were going to say there is someone coming, and I was like,
no.
oh,
Sorry.
We don't have a lot of power to fix this situation.
No.
We're already rolling. All right, I'm going to put it into sport mode. Okay, anyway, so.
But yeah, no, the mirrors, someone makes like a fisheye kind of mirror that lets you see a little bit better for the blind spots.
Okay.
Which is one of the few things I want to do to this car, as well as like a really thorough interior shampoo.
Gotcha. Now, passing that Volt, it just really highlights the different types of hybrid systems that go into cars, you know? This is... I don't know why people are like not sporty. Like this, maybe at the time because you're comparing it against like a Mini Cooper or something from this time period, which would have been absolutely savage. But today, everything's so heavy, so this starts to feel like a lightweight, even though it's probably still like 3,000 pounds or...
27.
20. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's sub 3,000 pounds. Wow. Oh my goodness. I'm actually kind of enjoying this. I have, after driving all of the Preludes, all I know is that like I want a second gen Prelude in the worst way. And it's like one of the best shifters I've ever felt. Gentle over the crest. Sometimes people are hanging out. I was gonna have to treat this like a fake sports car, but you can actually dog on it a little bit. Like it takes it. You're not gonna keep up with your friends. You're just not. Like if your friend has an 8th gen Civic Si, like they're gone, like evaporated into the distance.
Completely.
But this is actually really charming in a corner. And I would much rather be driving this than that, despite the fact that the only problem with this car is it just doesn't get like 50 miles per gallon. And that's what it needs. Like to be a formidable, and I'm staring at these gliders because like I have, you know, neurodivergent tendencies, and I'm driving a CRZ and going, oh, remote control airplanes. You know.
He's in an all-track wagon too.
Oh, of course he is. Okay. But it just doesn't have the juice to get it going. 10.5 to 60, right? Like that Prius right there, the newest version of a Prius is like, you know, those things are rockets. And there's a cop right there. And I can go red line to red line to red line, and probably I won't catch his attention. It just won't.
Go for it.
Oh man. I just didn't know. I ignored these things. I fully ignored this car. And I get it. It doesn't tick all the boxes, but like, it's really fun to drive. There we go. Gotta get in a third for 60, which is, I think, why it doesn't break that 10-second barrier.
Yeah. I think you have to shift at like 55?
Oh my goodness.
It's that final leg.
And you can kind of beat on it a little bit. Although the thing is, because it's in sport mode, when I get into the throttle, it engages that motor like all the way, and it actually kind of hits harder than I'm asking for it to hit. So that's a little interesting.
Yeah.
So maybe some finesse tuning needs to be done, but
you have to be really, really gentle with the throttle, especially starting in first in sport mode. Like, it wants to jump to 2,500 RPM.
So what led you to this? Why CRZ?
Biggest two things were I was spending quite literally $800 a month in repairs, and I was doing almost all the work myself on the Volvo, so I needed something cheap to work on and or reliable. And the other part was I just needed a silly car. Like, the C30 is a silly car. You don't find like hatchbacks with a 5-cylinder turbo and a manual often, and I liked having something weird that was fun to drive. And this is also weird and surprisingly fun to drive. So the only real sacrifice was, other than the horsepower, the the lack of back seats. But it's fun. It gets great gas mileage when you're driving it nicely. And so far, all I've had to do to it is an oil change, which is so relaxing compared to like a timing belt on a weekend right before work, or like tearing apart like everything to do like motor mounts, or replacing the CV axles for like the 3rd time.
CRZ is technically supposed to be a successor to the CRX spiritually. It's not. This is a successor spiritually to the first gen Insight.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, but they wanted to use CRZ. They're giving them new nomenclature. And to me, I think the new Prelude is really a spiritual successor to this. And yet, because they used the Prelude name, they may have shot themselves in the foot because people expected something different. Yet, if that Prelude was more based on CRZ, which is a bigger risk because this did not sell well. If the Prelude only sells 4,000 units a year, we are in CRZ territory, man. Took all of our might, but we caught a quarter throttle GMC Sierra.
That's the best part. No one knows I'm racing that. But let me tell you.
The amount of authentic street racing tickets I could get in this because I'm actually racing, but nobody knows. Wow. Look, I'm all about low power fun. And like, this car really delivers on that attitude. And it does it on a real budget. Because like I said, I hope it's okay that how much did you spend on this car?
I think it was like 2,700 or 2,900 bucks.
That's insane. Yeah. That's hard to find, man. And how special is that? How special is that?
I love this thing. It's super fun to drive. I'm gonna try to get it out to some autocrosses and track events this year.
I am genuinely having a good time. And is it the car I'm going to run out and buy? Probably not. I mean, it's fine, but like, I am starting to really dig oddball Hondas. And this is an oddball Honda. The only oddball Honda that I feel really doesn't match the oddball Hondas is the Prologue because it's a Chevy EV.
Equinox, yeah.
It's based on a Blazer, and I have to say, like, just like anything else in the world, just because everybody tells you, oh, isn't that bad? Isn't that bad? Isn't that bad? Sometimes you gotta try it for yourself. And while this car absolutely doesn't fit the position of the masses, maybe it's actually okay. Maybe it's actually what you wanted, but you just never thought of it because someone told you, well, nobody likes those. Somebody liked them. And I'll tell you, people really like that first gen Insight because there's people in my neighborhood that have like a dozen of them. And they're mostly probably just harvesting them for batteries because they were lead acid, I think, in the beginning. And a lot of people like switch them out to lithium ion later. But man, I just think there's charm in oddball cars. And a lot of times we don't find that charm until much later. But anyway, I'm really thrilled to finally have had some seat time in the CRZ. Thanks, Dana, for bringing this out for me. I'm having a good time. And I think, I was a little skeptical when you changed from the Volvo to this because I knew you were used to a little more power, a little more torque, but this is a more fun car to drive and I actually feel connected to it. And that's the beauty of Honda and why I like them. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. Engine shuts off. We are now just chilling. That's great. It's doing its thing. And what I'm curious is like when it decides to turn this engine back on. Is it when I clutch in or is it when I start nudging it to first? So I'm going to clutch in, over. All right, so I actually have to engage that first gear for it to clutch in. But then, unlike a lot of modern cars that would just keep the car running, this actually just shut itself off again. So this is pretty neat.
Only exceptions are if it needs brake pressure or if the HVAC can't catch up. Then it'll keep the engine on for that.
Gotcha.
But I've even had it shut off with the little, like, it doesn't have a coolant temp gauge, but it has a little blue LED that comes on to indicate it's still warming up.
Sure.
And it's shut off when it's doing that still, which is weird, but saves gas, I guess.
Yeah.